incredible.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing as the county where Sanford Land is killed.
Very, very similar, except Ferguson's probably a lot worse. But what happened is when they finished the investigation, they said, look, there's racism. So to that credit, they transferred the court out of Ferguson to another municipality to solve the problem. They had an election where people voted. There are now 3 blacks on the city council. New police chief, new mayor. And so the Ferguson case says, number one, if you get involved in local politics through civic engagement, you can stop some of the stuff via your government. So they had to learn a very valuable lesson. Get involved and make your voice in cities. At the time was 45-50% black. So no reason for not voting. So that's a good case scenario of what. And Ferguson been very quiet lately. But that's just one case. The good news is, after all these bad incidents around the country, St. Louis, Ferguson, you had Madison, Wisconsin, a number of places around the country where there were shootings. You had Eric Garner in New York City. The president got this real nice task force together. He said, look, led by Charles Ramley, who was the Philadelphia police chief. Go around the country and find me the best practices available and make recommendations so we can stop this problem. So on May 15, 2015, they finished their report. It's called the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, May 2015. Now, the problem is, this is so common. This report sat on somebody's desk for almost a year. The only reason it surfaced is because of the recent incidents involving Baton Rouge and also St. Paul, and also the shooting of officers in Dallas and of course in Baton Rouge. This report is very comprehensive. Great report. I'll share a little bit of this report with you. And this report doesn't just talk about police and community. They have a plan of action for community organizations. For example, it says, engage local law enforcement through meetings and surveys. Work and problem-solving efforts. Work with law enforcement to solve these issues. Then it skips to law enforcement. It says law enforcement review and update policies, training, data collection, use of force procedures, increase transparency of data, policies, and procedures. So you got community, which is out, law enforcement, and finally, and this is very interesting, it says local government. Because the city council in Austin and most places never touches these issues at all. They don't even talk about it. It says, create listening opportunities with the community. Allocate government resources. Define civilian oversight and strengthen civilian oversight. Great suggestions, but nobody pushed this at all. So now we've got perhaps a national emergency, and people say, well, what do we do? Because things happen every day still, and there's no conformity. Well, what we said to the president is, look, this is an executive report. This is a great time to take executive action. That way it goes to we have 18,000 police departments in this country, 18,000. Through executive action, you can send it down to every one of them. There are 800,000 police officers. If you have a uniform standard, then at least we can begin to get on the same page when these things happen. And because of the urgency of this issue, you can get people's attention. I don't know if you will, but you've been saying very strongly, not executive order, just executive action. That puts everybody on the same page and shows the whole country that this is a very, very serious issue. That's our task right now, is to get him to actually do that. So folks will understand this is not new. We don't have to always continue to react. There are things being done in many cities right now to address these issues. There are many cities that have already addressed these issues and are doing quite well. Austin's done well overall, but there's much work to be done. But there's some good examples out there where folks have done this, that they've engaged officers, and they've got the proper results, because accountability always works, almost in every situation. Another example of how police can respond. In Atlanta, Georgia, on June 22nd, young man, 22 years old, Lavarius Rogers, he broke into a car. He stole a purse. He was observed doing something by an officer, happened to be white. He was shot in the head and killed. Burglary. Well, I think on Monday, that officer was fired and charged with felony murder.
He was fired?
Fired and charged with felony murder. Very unique case. So within 30 days, he was held accountable. See, people see that and they say, okay, well, there is some hope. So when you do the right thing, people will typically cooperate. But there's so many bad things, and there's no accountability. APD, and I'll give you one more local case. I'm going to transfer just a little bit. Charles Klonick case, no doubt. Killed Larry Jackson Jr., was indicted by a grand jury as he should have been. But a judge decided, Judge Lee Yakel decided that day there was a federal task force inside Benchmark Bank, and that Klonick, despite being an APD officer, worked for that task force. As a result, he had immunity from prosecution. This is a judge. Can you imagine?
Which judge was it?
This is Larry Jackson Jr. case, 2013.
No, what judge was it?
Lee Yakel. And here's what's ironic. The case he cited was a case from 1890.
1890.
1890.
Go back to
1890.
1890.
You know what I said to him? Why not just pick the Dred Scott case?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's ironic is that when he did that, I criticized him heavily, but he wasn't even criticized for that.
so what do we need to do? I mean,
I think first, know the situations where we are and understand why people are so uptight about this issue. But some good news on that case. In ACP, along with Travis County, Rosie Lindbergh, it did file a amicus brief, and that case now is going to the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans. We're trying to go all the way to the Supreme Court based on Yeager's ruling. So that was good to see Rosemary fight that case. But before I get to your point, over the past 16 years, there was one indictment I worked. That was the case of Jesse Owen Jr. in 2003. And I got to tell you about circumstances. He was stopped. The legislator stole a car. Pardon, stole. He was borrowed a car. He was stopped by an officer named Scott Blasco early one morning. Kid, another kid. He's an all young black man primarily. Pulled over. He stopped. Blasco approached him from the car and sat down, see the license. In the process of doing that, he saw a shiny object on the seat behind Jesse Owens. He assumed it was a weapon, so he reached in the car, spooked the kid took off, he shot him 5 times. Upon review, it was a cell phone, not a weapon. So he was indicted at the time on Ronnie Earl, he was indicted. But Ronnie Earl said, wait a minute, grand jury, he said, wait a minute, this indictment is technically insufficient. He approached a judge who was African American, Brenda Kennedy, and said, this is not a sufficient indictment. And this is the DA talking to a grand jury. He approached the judge, she threw it out. Velasco got 90 days for not having his dash cam on. He's now a detective in APD.
Whoa.
So that's what we fight in this town. What can we do? Well, going to the end, the task force is a brilliant example of how policing can be. And folks need uniformity and hope from a federal standpoint, because the federal law, of course, supersedes everything else. That's one thing that we can do. That takes a lot of work and a lot of time. I've been calling for reform on the state level, local level, national level for the past 8 years at the Commissioner's Court. And people are not getting that. They're getting that. But that's a lot of fight and a lot of work, and that's a political issue. In the meantime, good police forces have accountability. I was talking to Savannah about a case on yesterday, a special meeting. That case is going to come out within a couple of days. You're going to be horrified when you see that case. It was going to be released yesterday. They said, no, don't release it. Let's talk more before it comes out to the public. So you're going to see that case come out next 2 days. It wasn't fatal, thank God, but it's terrible when you see it. And I said, look, guys, you are a military organization. If you're a commander-in-chief, you can tell your officers, here's what we want. And any kind of behavior like this, we're gonna condemn it, we're gonna terminate you. You and the union both. So when a guy does something like that, bad tactics, locally, it's always a function of leadership. If you can't tell your officers to conform to the Constitution, we can make all the laws in the world. And everybody has a place to play, but it starts with the police chief. And the question is, why are these folks still doing these things based on the visibility, the urgency, the country itself? We're seeing institutionalized behavior. So you've got to hold people accountable. You've got to warn them about your standards, and when they violate your standard, they have to be terminated. And military organizations can do that. In fact, as I close out, this is Harry Truman Order 489981. We talk a lot about Civil Rights Act, 64, Voting Rights Act. We don't talk much about Truman. The military did this the right way. When they did integration, they did it swift and they did it very fast. And they did not tolerate racism. A lot of folks in the military it was the first example of institutional power being used the right way. But we don't talk about proving an executive order. An executive order. It's important. That's why the military moves so fast. And they led away from civilian life. But in civilian life, we don't have the kind of uniformity that we need. So we got to work for a uniform standard. We've got to make this issue also an aspect of government. It can't just be the police force. It's got to be the city council. And they never address these issues at all. They say because of city charter. I don't mean make a legal comment. I mean come out and inform and educate yourself. I go to a lot of meetings. I've been to 5 this week. I never see the governor. Never see city council. So we have a political challenge on our hands in terms of accountability and responsibility. And so we hold people accountable at every level. Police chief, city council, revisers, sheriff. By the way, Travis County is one of the best forces in the country. They've done that job. They have a great record on racial profiling that exists there. They have very few shootings. Just the culture is entirely different than APD. And they're one of the examples nationally of good policing is the Travis County Sheriff's Department. So those things that we can do. First, but we got to understand what the problems are. And a lot of people still don't get what the problems are. So we got to understand the problems, and then work on solutions and raising awareness of the population. Yes, ma'am.
I like some of the things that you're reporting, especially when you speak of executive orders, when you speak of that study going back to 2015, and I don't think any of us